So, what happens when you're forced to choose between your duty and destroying literally everything you love? Today, we're jumping right into one of the most intense moments in all of world literature, the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. And trust me, this isn't just some ancient story. It's a deep, deep look at a warrior's ultimate crisis on the battlefield of life itself. Let's get into it. We're starting right in the thick of it. That's Arjuna speaking. He's the greatest warrior of his time, and he's just moments away from the biggest battle of his life. But instead of feeling brave, he's just horrified. You see, he's about to fight his own family, his cousins, his teachers, his grandfathers, all for a kingdom. And in his mind, that's not victory. That's a great sin. Okay, so let's really set the scene. Picture this. We're on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Two enormous armies are squared up, ready to go. And right there, in the middle of it all, is our hero, Arjuna. And he is having a complete and total breakdown.
Now, you got to understand this. Arjuna isn't just scared of, fighting or dying. He's a warrior. That's what he does. No, his fear is way more complex. He's thought this through, and he sees this war setting off a catastrophic domino effect, a chain reaction that he believes will absolutely destroy his entire society.
So here's the first domino to fall in his mind. He reasons that if he kills the elders and leaders in this battle, the entire family structure, the glue of their society, will just shatter. And he's afraid this will lead to this massive moral decay, starting with what he calls the corruption of the women of the family. And the spiral just keeps going down. From that breakdown of the family unit, he predicts the rise of what the text calls unwanted progeny. For him, this isn't just a social issue. He sees it creating a literal hellish situation for everybody, just ripping apart the very foundation of their community. And get this, his anxiety doesn't even stop in the physical world. He's convinced the fallout from this war will actually echo into the afterlife. He's terrified that with family traditions gone, no one will make the sacred offerings to their ancestors, causing their souls to suffer. So the ruin isn't just for the living, it's for the dead too. And this is the final, devastating conclusion to his whole argument. The destruction of these timeless traditions, as he sees it, leads to only one possible outcome for him and his people: eternal damnation. He doesn't see this war as a path to glory, but as a one-way ticket straight to hell. So what do you do when your own logic has backed you into a corner of absolute despair? You just collapse. And that's not a metaphor. The text says he literally throws down his famous bow and arrows and just slumps down in his chariot, totally paralyzed by his grief. The greatest warrior on earth is completely broken. But right here, in this moment of absolute crisis, the entire story pivots. This breakdown is about to become a breakthrough. This is where Arjuna realizes his own logic has failed him, and he has to find a totally different kind of wisdom. This is it, his final declaration. After laying out his entire logical case against the war, he turns to his friend and charioteer, Krishna, and says it plain and simple: I shall not fight. It's the only conclusion his reasoning can lead to. He'd rather lose, or even die, than cause all this destruction. And then, in almost the very next breath, he does something incredible that changes everything. He admits total defeat, not on the battlefield, but in his own head. He says, I am confused, and he turns to Krishna, not as a friend, but as a student for the very first time. I am your disciple, please instruct me. He's surrendering completely. He makes it so clear that his problem isn't something that winning can fix. He says that even if he won an unrivaled kingdom, the biggest prize you could ever imagine, it wouldn't even touch the grief that's eating him alive. His crisis is totally internal, and it needs an internal answer. So how does Krishna respond to all this anguish and despair? Well, the text says he smiles. Just smiles. And then he begins to teach. But he doesn't talk about battle plans or politics. He completely reframes the entire problem, shifting the whole conversation away from the battlefield and toward the eternal soul. This is Krishna's very first lesson, and wow, it is a stunner. He basically looks at Arjuna and says, "You're using a lot of smart sounding words, but you're crying about things that aren't even worth crying over." He says the truly wise don't grieve for the living or for the dead. I mean, that just immediately throws out Arjuna's entire argument and signals that we're about to look at life and death in a completely new way.
To do this, Krishna introduces this huge idea, the Dehina, which means the embodied soul. He's drawing a massive line in the sand between our temporary physical body and our true eternal self, that part of us that doesn't change, the part that continues on long after the body is gone.
And Krishna explains this with this really powerful analogy. Think of it like this. Just like you pass through being a kid, a teenager, and an adult, all in the same body, the soul inside stays constant. And death? Well, that's not the end. It's just the soul passing into a new body. It's really no different, he says, than taking off old clothes and putting on new ones. So here's the crucial point, right? According to Krishna, for someone who really gets this, what he calls a sober person, death isn't something to be confused or terrified by. Understanding this is the very first step out of all that grief. It doesn't mean the pain vanishes, but it totally reframes it by showing you what's real and permanent versus what's just temporary. And that kind of brings us right back to us, doesn't it? It leaves us with this huge question. If our true self, our soul, is eternal and separate from our physical bodies and our day-to-day problems, then what are we so afraid of losing in our own lives? It's a pretty powerful thought, connecting a warrior's crisis thousands of years ago to the stuff we all deal with right now.